At 25, Daniel thought he had life figured out. He had just landed a good-paying job, moved into a modern apartment, and bought the car he'd been dreaming about since college. Every Friday night, his social media was filled with expensive dinners, weekend trips, and photos that made it look like he was living the dream. His friends admired him, his family was proud of him. Even Daniel believed he was winning. Then something unexpected happened. One ordinary Tuesday morning, his company announced layoffs. By Friday afternoon, Daniel was unemployed. For the first time in years, he opened his banking app without confidence. His savings could barely cover 2 months of expenses. His credit cards were nearly maxed out. His car payment was still due. His rent wasn't going anywhere. And suddenly, the life that looked successful from the outside started falling apart. Now, let me tell you about someone else. Michael graduated from the same university. He earned almost the same salary, but his life looked ordinary. He drove an older car. He lived in a smaller apartment. He rarely posted luxury vacations online. Some people even assumed he wasn't doing very well. But when his company announced layoffs that same week, Michael reacted differently. He wasn't celebrating, but he wasn't panicking either. He had built an emergency fund. He had invested consistently for years. His monthly expenses were low enough that he could comfortably search for the right job instead of accepting the first offer that came his way. 2 people, the same education, nearly identical incomes, completely different outcomes. So, what made the difference? It wasn't luck, it wasn't intelligence, and it certainly wasn't because one earned millions while the other didn't. The real difference was something much smaller. A series of financial decisions repeated every single day for years. Most people believe financial success is built through one big opportunity, a huge promotion, a winning investment, starting the perfect business. But in reality, wealth is usually built or destroyed by ordinary habits that seem too small to matter in the moment. The scary part? Most people don't realize they're making these mistakes until 10 or 20 years have already passed. By then, fixing them becomes much harder. That's exactly why today's video matters. Whether you're in your 20s, your 30s, or your 40s, these mistakes can quietly steal years of financial progress without you even noticing. And the earlier you recognize them, the more control you gain over your future. I'm John, and welcome back to Just Invest. Let's begin with the first mistake. Mistake number 1, believing a bigger paycheck automatically creates wealth. Imagine receiving a message from your boss. Congratulations, you're getting a 30% raise. Most people immediately imagine a better life, a nicer apartment, a newer car, more shopping, more vacations. Finally, the reward for years of hard work. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of your success. The problem begins when every increase in income is immediately matched by an increase in spending. This is called lifestyle inflation. It's one of the quietest financial traps because it feels completely normal. You tell yourself, you've earned it. After all, everyone around you seems to be upgrading their lifestyle too. So you upgrade your phone, then your furniture, then your wardrobe, then your car. A few years later, your salary has doubled. But somehow, your financial stress hasn't changed at all. Why? Because your expenses quietly grew alongside your income. It's like trying to fill a bucket that has a hole in the bottom. No matter how much more water you pour in, the bucket never stays full. Many people don't have an income problem. They have a spending problem disguised as success. The wealthiest people often understand something that most people overlook. Every raise creates a choice. You can spend it, or you can buy more freedom. Every dollar you invest today becomes a worker that earns money while you sleep. Every unnecessary expense does the opposite. It demands that you keep working just to maintain it. The question isn't, can I afford this? The better question is, what is this purchase going to cost my future? Because sometimes the true cost isn't today's price. It's the years of financial freedom you quietly give away. And that's a trade most people never realize they're making. Mistake number 2, waiting for the perfect time to start investing. There's a sentence millions of people repeat every year. I'll start investing when I earn more, when the economy improves, when I finish paying off this, when life becomes less busy, when I understand everything. The problem? That perfect moment never arrives. Life always finds another reason to make you wait. And while you're waiting, time keeps moving. Imagine two friends. Sarah starts investing a modest amount every month at age 25. David waits until he's 35 because he wants to earn more first. David eventually invests more money every month than Sarah ever did. But despite contributing more, Sarah still finishes with significantly more wealth. Why? Because money doesn't just grow, time grows money. Compound growth rewards patience far more than perfection. Think of planting a tree. The best time was years ago. The second best time is today. No one expects the tree to provide shade tomorrow, but years later, you'll be grateful you planted it. Investing works the same way. The people who become financially secure aren't usually the ones who perfectly predict the market. They're the ones who simply begin, small, consistently, without waiting for certainty. Because certainty rarely exists, progress does. And over decades, progress almost always beats hesitation. Mistake number 3, confusing debt with wealth. A few years after getting his first promotion, Daniel looked around his apartment and smiled. A luxury couch, the latest television, a designer watch, a brand new SUV parked downstairs. From the outside, it looked like success, but appearances can be incredibly expensive. Every month, before Daniel could spend $1 on himself, money was already committed. The car payment, the credit card bill, the furniture financing, the personal loan. His income looked impressive, but most of it had already been promised to someone else. That's when many people discover an uncomfortable truth. Owning expensive things doesn't necessarily mean you own them. Sometimes they own you. Debt isn't always bad. A mortgage on a reasonably priced home or a loan used to build a business can create opportunities. The danger comes when debt is used to buy things that lose value almost as soon as you bring them home. A luxury phone loses value. A new car starts depreciating the moment it leaves the dealership. Designer clothing eventually goes out of style, yet the monthly payments remain. Every payment quietly steals money that could have been building your future. Wealth isn't measured by what people see. It's measured by what you own, after subtracting everything you owe. The richest looking person in the room isn't always the wealthiest. Sometimes they're simply carrying the biggest financial burden. Before buying something expensive, ask yourself one question. Will this purchase create more freedom in my life or less? That single question can prevent years of unnecessary financial pressure. Mistake number 4, trying to impress people who aren't paying your bills. Human beings naturally compare themselves with others. It's how we've always measured progress. But social media has turned comparison into a full-time job. Every day someone is buying a new house. Someone is taking another vacation. Someone is wearing luxury brands. Someone seems to be living a perfect life. What we rarely see are the credit card statements, the financial stress, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices hidden behind the photos. Daniel didn't buy his new car because he needed it. He bought it because everyone around him seemed to be upgrading theirs. He wasn't chasing happiness. He was chasing approval. And approval is one of the most expensive things you can buy because you'll never own enough of it. There will always be someone with a bigger house, a newer car, a more luxurious vacation, a higher salary. If your happiness depends on keeping up with everyone else, the finish line keeps moving. Michael understood something different. Every dollar spent trying to impress strangers was a dollar that couldn't work toward his freedom. He wasn't trying to look rich. He was trying to become financially secure. Years later, the difference became obvious. One looked wealthy. The other actually was. The most successful people often become comfortable saying 2 simple words. Not yet. Not yet to unnecessary upgrades. Not yet to status purchases. Not yet to spending simply because everyone else is. Sometimes delaying gratification isn't giving something up. It's buying yourself a better future. Mistake number 5, never learning how money actually works. Think back to your years in school. You probably learned equations, history, science, literature, all valuable subjects. But how much time was spent explaining taxes, investing, compound growth, credit, retirement planning? For many people, almost none. Then adulthood arrives. Suddenly, You're expected to make financial decisions that will shape the next 40 years of your life, without ever being taught the rules of the game. That's like asking someone to fly an airplane after only reading the safety card. No wonder so many people struggle. Money isn't just about earning, it's about understanding. People spend years learning skills to increase their income. Very few spend even a few hours each month learning how to manage that income wisely. The irony is that financial knowledge often produces returns far greater than any single purchase ever could. One good book, one useful lesson, one changed habit, repeated over decades. That's how ordinary people quietly build extraordinary financial lives. You don't need to become an economist. You don't need to predict markets. But you do need to understand the basic principles that govern money, because whether you learn them intentionally or through expensive mistakes, life will teach them eventually. The choice is simply how much those lessons will cost. Mistake number 6, living without a financial plan. Imagine getting into your car and deciding to drive across the country. No destination, no map, no GPS, no idea how much fuel you'll need. Most people would call that reckless. Yet millions approach their finances exactly this way. They work, they spend, they save whatever happens to be left over, month after month, year after year, without ever deciding where they're actually trying to go. Money without direction disappears surprisingly fast. Michael had simple goals: build a 6-month emergency fund, invest consistently every month, avoid unnecessary debt, increase investments whenever his income increased. Nothing complicated, but every decision had a purpose. Daniel had goals too. They just weren't written down. He wanted to be comfortable someday. The problem with someday is that it never appears on the calendar. Financial freedom isn't an accident. It's usually the result of thousands of intentional decisions made over many years. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a clear direction. Because even a slow journey toward the right destination beats running fast in the wrong direction. And that's the difference between hoping your future works out and building one that does. Mistake number 7, thinking small, purchases don't matter. A coffee here, food delivery there, a streaming subscription you forgot about, a premium app you'll only use once, an online sale that feels too good to pass up. None of these purchases seem dangerous on their own. In fact, that's exactly why they're so powerful. Financial problems rarely begin with one massive decision. They begin with hundreds of tiny ones that quietly become habits. Imagine a bucket sitting under a leaking pipe. One drop doesn't seem important, neither does the second, or the 100th. But leave it there long enough, and the bucket eventually overflows. Your spending works the same way. It's not about depriving yourself of every small pleasure. It's about understanding that every dollar has a job. When money is spent without intention, it slowly disappears into things you'll barely remember a few weeks later. Michael had a simple habit. Before buying anything that wasn't essential, he asked himself one question: will I still be happy I bought this a month from now? Surprisingly often, the answer was no. So, he waited. Most of the time, the urge disappeared. The money stayed in his account. Those small decisions didn't make him rich overnight. But over 20 years, they became thousands of extra dollars invested instead of forgotten. The lesson isn't to stop enjoying life. It's to stop letting unconscious habits decide your future. Because wealth is often built one intentional decision at a time. Mistake number 8. Ignoring the emergency fund. No one wakes up expecting life to fall apart. You don't schedule a medical emergency. You don't plan for your car's engine to fail. You don't put a layoff on your calendar. Yet these moments arrive anyway. And when they do, they reveal whether you've prepared for uncertainty or simply hoped it would never happen. The week Daniel lost his job, he wasn't just worried about finding another one. He was worried about surviving until he did. Every bill became a countdown. Every day without income increased the pressure. Meanwhile, Michael had quietly built something that didn't look exciting: an emergency fund. It wasn't glamorous. It didn't earn compliments. No one congratulated him for keeping cash aside. But when life became unpredictable, that simple habit gave him something priceless: time. Instead of accepting the first job he could find out of fear, he had the freedom to choose the right opportunity. That's what an emergency fund really buys. Not just money, choices, freedom from panic, the ability to think clearly when everyone else is making desperate decisions. People often chase high investment returns before building a financial safety net. But the strongest buildings don't begin with the roof. They begin with a solid foundation. Your emergency fund is that foundation. Without it, even a small storm can shake everything you've worked so hard to build. Mistake number 9, believing it's too late. One of the most expensive lies people tell themselves is this: I should have started years ago. At first it sounds reasonable, but hidden inside that sentence is another thought. So there's no point starting now. That belief has stopped more people from building wealth than almost any market crash ever could. Imagine planting a tree. If you planted one 10 years ago, today you'd be enjoying the shade. But refusing to plant one today doesn't change the past. It only guarantees you'll still have no shade 10 years from now. The same is true for money, whether you're 25, 38, or 52. Your best opportunity is the next decision you make. Michael didn't become financially secure because he predicted the future. He simply refused to waste time wishing he had started earlier. Instead, he focused on the only moment he could control: today. Every investment, every saved dollar, every intentional decision became another vote for the future he wanted. Regret keeps your eyes on yesterday. Wealth is built by acting today. Mistake number 10, forgetting that wealth is about freedom, not status. Years passed. Daniel eventually found another job. He rebuilt his career. But something had changed. Losing everything taught him a lesson. Success never could. He stopped chasing appearances, he paid off debt, reduced unnecessary expenses, started investing consistently, built an emergency fund. Little by little, his financial stress began to disappear. Michael's life changed too. Not because he suddenly became flashy. In fact, from the outside, he still looked remarkably ordinary. But internally, everything was different. He could take time off without fear, help his family when they needed him, turn down work that didn't align with his values, travel without relying on credit cards, sleep peacefully knowing one unexpected bill wouldn't destroy years of progress. That's what wealth actually looks like. It isn't always luxury cars, or designer watches, or giant houses. Sometimes it's simply the ability to say, no. No to jobs you hate. No to panic. No to living paycheck to paycheck. No to making decisions from fear. Real wealth gives you options, and options create freedom. That is the prize worth chasing. If Daniel and Michael teach us anything, it's this: your financial future isn't decided by one dramatic moment. It's shaped by thousands of ordinary choices. The decision to save instead of spend, to invest instead of wait, to learn instead of assume, to build instead of impress. Every one of those decisions feels small in the moment, but over years, they become the difference between financial stress and financial peace. The truth is, none of us can change the mistakes we made yesterday. Yesterday is already written, but tomorrow is still being shaped by the decisions you make today. So, ask yourself one question before this video ends. What's one financial habit I can change this week that my future self will thank me for 10 years from now? Because building wealth isn't about being perfect. It's about becoming a little more intentional every single day. One decision, 1 month, 1 year at a time, and one day you'll look back and realize that the life you wanted wasn't created by luck. It was built by the choices you made when no one was watching. Thank you for spending these minutes with me. I'm John, and this has been Just Invest. Until next time, remember, the goal isn't to look wealthy. The goal is to live with the freedom that real wealth provides.